shut up and listen to me. There's things I need to say.
Hey, what's up, guys? Like the title says, today we're watching Hellboy, and Hellboy 2, and Hellboy again. And finally, we're watching Hellboy, The Crooked Man. That's a lot of Hellboys. 4 movies, 3 franchises, 3 different takes on the character. These movies don't get a whole lot of attention in the wider DC Marvel universes. The movies are more similar to Blade in my mind. It's popular, but it ain't Batman. But today, that's all gonna change. These movies are getting my full superhero attention. By the way, heads up, I will be spoiling all of these movies. Also, if I sound different, it's because I am sick right now. Anyway, the first Hellboy came out in 2004, and it's pretty okay. The movie is shot normal, looks pretty decent, and I have no major issues with it. The movie opens on a dark and stormy night with a group of Nazis not being very cool. Rasputin is still alive, and he and this really dope-looking assassin guy are opening an evil portal to help Hitler win the war. They open it briefly, but the Americans stop them, but not before a cute little CGI baby Hellboy sneaks his way through. He might not look amazing, but it's 2004, he looks decent. And it's not like the other movies would ever make a worse version of baby CGI Hellboy, right?
You sure about that? You sure about that?
The remaining runtime of the movie is spent in modern day 2004. We follow Hellboy, now a government agent for the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. What really sets this movie apart from other superhero movies of its time, and especially today, this movie has some really amazing looking practical effects and costume designs. The Ape Sapien costume is sick as fuck. He looks exactly like what you would imagine a fish-human hybrid to look like. The first monster Hellboy fights is also a testament to the practical effects of the time. It's hard to explain, but everything feels so real. The way the creatures move, the goo splattering off of them, the sound design, the weight of the impacts during the fights. Sometimes you watch like a modern Marvel movie, and even though the CGI might look great, or maybe not, even when the CGI looks good, it often feels weightless, like it's floating on screen, rather than interacting with the environment. And I don't mean to say I hate the use of CGI, but it looks better in support of practical effects, like in these movies, than it does in replacing them. I also think Hellboy looks the best in these 2 Del Toro films, and it's kind of funny because it's honestly probably the least intrusive costume of the 3. Like the costume director was just like, yeah, you look close enough to Hellboy, let's just paint you red and call it a day. Whereas David Harbour is buried under prosthetics, and Jack Kesey looks fucking odd. He's also painted red, but he looks like he has 2 tuna cans taped to his dome, and I think he's wearing some weird looking chest prosthetics underneath. But we'll get to those 2 later. When adult Hellboy gets introduced, I think he looks pretty cool. A couple issues I have with his first scene though, is I really wish Hellboy took the cigar out of his mouth when he was talking. Smoking is cool, bro, but what the fuck are you saying?
What you looking at, John? They're playing our song. Come on.
They're playing our song. I don't know if it's just me, but I can barely understand what he's saying. I also wish all of Hellboy's character traits weren't just force-fed immediately down our throats. In the first 10 seconds of meeting him, we're either told or shown he likes cats, he still eats candy bars, he stalks this girl, and he files his horns down to fit in.
He files them to fit in.
Jesus Christ, movie, are we pressed for time? Space them out a little bit. You also don't need someone to verbally say every single trait.
He's got a thing for cats.
Like, I see the cats. He saves cats.
Somebody please get my kittens!
I get he likes cats. 2 paws up for being a cat friend in the movie. An example of character traits done well in this movie is I really like that when we see adult Hellboy encountering his dad for the first time, he hides a cigar.
Father.
What a nice and subtle way to say so many things about their relationship. I just wish the other nuances of his character were delivered more naturally. The first Hellboy action scene comes in quick, and I will say a common theme among most of these movies is Hellboy doesn't give a fuck in these action scenes. For all the movie's comments about his temper and his anger, Hellboy acts like he smoked a fat blunt before each action set piece.
You're gonna need some heavy fiber to move that out.
And Hellboy's kind of a funny example of a superhero in general. When he's not in his Super Saiyan immortal god mode, He's just like if someone's middle-aged dad turned red and got super strength. He's not some crazy martial artist or elite marksman. He just shoots big bullets and punches things with his big hand till they stop moving. And I am not complaining about that. Not every movie needs a hero with the marksmanship of John Wick and Captain America choreography. Hellboy's just a fucking tank that punches really hard and is also destined to destroy the earth. But anyway, the main villain in this movie does leave something to be desired. Rasputin just falls into the category of very basic vanilla antagonist with a really convoluted plan. He's evil because he's evil, and that's it. His plan involves setting all these monsters after Hellboy and murdering his dad so the team can follow these breadcrumbs back to his lair and then almost get killed by more monsters, but they actually need Hellboy to be alive so he can fist this hole with his big hand to open a portal during a lunar eclipse. Are you still following? Please raise your hand if I lost anybody. They threaten to and eventually kill his girlfriend as leverage so he'll open this dimension to possibly bring her back. But why not just kidnap his girlfriend in the first place? Like an hour ago when you were in her house? Why risk them all dying? And how did you possibly know this was all going to work out in your favor? What would happen if they didn't show up on the exact date and time for this fucking eclipse? Or if they didn't all knock themselves out with this big fire explosion? This is all pretty standard for superhero movies. Rasputin is kind of a lame villain, but I actually really like his main henchman. This guy looks so cool. He's some ex-Nazi ninja man that can slice bullets with a sword and is kept alive by like the power of evil or something. He has these weird ticks and has this turn dial on his chest. I don't know what it does, but it looks cool. He looks super dope in his various costumes. But there's also a couple scenes with them out of costume, and he looks like Wolverine, Origins, Deadpool, and Weasel from Suicide Squad had a baby.
You have your mother's eyes.
That's okay though, it only subtracts from his cool factor like 5%. There isn't really too much else going on in this movie. There's a hefty section built in on the Hellboy, Liz, and Myers love triangle. It's not particularly great, it's not bad either, it's just meh. It does end in a very funny way though. Hellboy rescues the day at the end of this movie, and he brings Liz back to life and they start having this fiery makeout session. And Myers just watches them, and the scene doesn't cut. He just keeps on staring like a fucking creep. The movie literally fades to black on a Myers voiceover, watching Hellboy steal his girl.
But how he decides to end them.
Which is even funnier considering he's ridden out of the next movie. Dude took such a massive L that he got erased from the franchise. Overall though, Hellboy 2004 is a fairly decent movie. If you haven't watched it, definitely give it a shot. Some parting advice on this particular movie: do not watch the extended edition. That type of shit is fine for Lord of the Rings or Blade Runner, where the final cut or deleted scenes add to the film, but these scenes were cut for a reason. I watched the extended edition, and it completely fucks with the pacing in this movie. Just watch the theatrical cut. On that note, onwards to Hellboy 2. Now this is actually a really good movie, and a vast improvement from the first. The jokes are better, the writing is better, the villain is better, there's some actual interesting world building, and also dynamic camera movement. In almost every way, this film improves on the original. First off with the filmmaking, I don't think the first one's bad, and the shots and cinematography might not be something you really think about when you're talking about Hellboy movies, but it creates a different feeling when you watch these two movies, especially back to back. Del Toro is a good filmmaker, and I mean obviously, he has multiple Oscars, but I really think he's honing his craft a lot more in this film. Right from the start, the cinematography feels way more dynamic. One of the first scenes is this long take following Abe and Tom through their headquarters building. The camera follows them seamlessly as they have this casual everyday conversation with these crazy monsters in the background. It looks really cool, and you can tell they put a lot of effort into making this. Also, we find out in this scene, Tom Manning's character is different this time around. Instead of being a hard ass, they rework him into a more sensitive comic relief character. And honestly, it works.
It's me. He's out to destroy me. My street cred is low.
Street cred.
My mojo.
But the changes in filmmaking aren't just in this scene. In the first film, a simple Hellboy-Tom conversation would be your typical over-the-shoulder, camera A, camera B setup. But here though, Del Toro does a full-on tracking shot, a long take, and this rotating camera movement that keeps the conversation visually engaging. Damn, Del Toro, you're really putting your whole pussy in this movie. Anyway, changes like that make Hellboy an all-around more entertaining watch. Next, I want to talk about the world building. Because why the fuck is it so much cooler in this movie? It's almost so drastically different, it's funny. Like in the last movie, there's this big thing to hide Hellboy and the bureau he works for, but in this one, they get outed almost immediately, and we find out there's this like secret magical kingdom that lives in tandem with our world. We even visit this under the bridge troll market in the coolest scene of the movie. Where the fuck was all this stuff in the last one? This movie really decided to drop its own Star Wars Cantina-esque scene with this troll market. All of these really dope looking characters that are almost entirely practical effects. And at the end of it is my personal favorite fight of the movie, between Hellboy and the villain's main henchman. They are just two really tanky characters just duking it out fisticuff style, and it's really cool to just see Hellboy beat him by outsmarting him instead of bludgeoning him to death. Now about the villain. I really like Prince Nawada. He is a drastic improvement from Rasputin. For one, his costume's a lot cooler. Rasputin just has an overcoat and 2004 sunglasses, like he's about to burn a mix CD for Hellboy. One of Prince Nawada's first scenes, he fucking struts into this chamber room, murks an entire Imperial Guard, then his own dad, to claim part of this ancient crown to own an immortal army because humans are destroying his world. That is way cooler than having some overly convoluted plan just to get Hellboy to fish your holes so you can bring about the apocalypse. Also, these little Gagu monsters he uses are scary as fuck. They call them tooth fairies, and they eat you alive and start with your teeth first. I think it's intentional that they sound like dentist drills when they're eating your teeth. It's a real mindfuck. Unless you're wearing plot armor like Hellboy and his crew are, you are screwed. The most dangerous job on Earth is being an extra in a Hellboy action scene. Lastly, this movie has the most satisfying ending of the 4 Hellboy films, with everyone having a character arc. I think the ending's a little predictable, and I have some nitpicks with the film here and there, but overall, it's pretty solid, and far better than I remember it being. Give it a watch if you haven't seen it in a while. It's pretty good. Now it's time for the real garbage.
Trash. Yeah, I love trash. Yum, yum, trash.
Hellboy 2019 does you the service of letting you know from the very beginning it's going to be dog shit. Starting off with the voiceover, just to let you know this is going to be an R-rated movie.
And for fucking good reason.
It uses fuck a lot, and is trying to be another Deadpool ripoff. And the scene consists of King Arthur.
Yes, that King Arthur.
Chopping up this witch like William Wallace and sending her across the globe. Then right after is the first scene of Hellboy. And it starts off with him on the phone, and dumb movie mistake number 1, how are you talking on the phone when we see the call isn't even answered? Hellboy's first mission is to bring back Ruiz to the Bureau. Good old Ruiz, everybody remembers Ruiz. Unfortunately for Hellboy though, Ruiz challenges him to a wrestling match, and then turns into an ugly fucking vampire bat. Hellboy, through the power of shitty editing, throws him onto a ring railing, and he immediately cries, "Bro, it's not like you accidentally killed him. You intentionally speared him through the fucking chest. But we'll miss you, Ruiz. Even though you were stabbed through your heart, you will always be in ours." But moving on, Hellboy then gets sent off to England to fight giants. But before we get to that, we're dumped with an extra load of exposition and his origin story again. And it's almost the exact same scene as the original Hellboy. There's this Rasputin-looking motherfucker, there's this assassin-looking dude, but for whatever reason, the movie decides to give all the Nazis retro 2000s 3D glasses. You would think I'm making that up, but genuinely some executives had to have sat down and watched this movie before release and been okay with these Nazis wearing these dumbass glasses looking like they're about to watch Spy Kids on their home TV. Also, unfortunately, the scene ends with yes another, slightly worse CGI baby Hellboy. But hey, at least this is the last CGI baby Hellboy we'll get. Like, the next movie definitely wouldn't make a third slightly more worse baby CGI Hellboy, right? Never mind. Back to the giant hunt though. Hellboy gets asked to go on this hunt to kill some giants that are terrorizing the English countryside. And surprise attack! The British huntsmen lied about the giants and they attempt to kill Hellboy because he's destined to take over the world and become the Queen of England or something. And the scene's pretty brutal. Like, they are messing up my man with these spears. But before the head British guy can deliver the final blow, Hellboy ends up getting saved by a group of giants. So, were the giants a lie or not a lie? Why wouldn't you just kill him when he's unassuming of an attack and in your own house? If the giants do exist, why lead Hellboy into giant territory where you have to account for him and 3 fucking giants? You know, British people, this level of strategy is why you guys got your ass beat by some colonists 300 years ago. Hellboy then fights the giants off, and this scene, in my opinion, looks fine. It's definitely one of the more ambitious fight scenes throughout the movie. The camera movement is a lot more dynamic, and the scene is entertaining. I do miss the more grounded fights and the practical effects from the first movie, and I prefer the way those 2 films look, but I understand this film is going for a different feel, and in this particular scene, I don't think it's that bad. The movie is kind of disorienting from this point on. Hellboy gets picked up by this van after the giant fight and wakes up in this teenage British girl's house. And they know each other because she was taken as a baby and replaced with Pumbaa from The Lion King, and Hellboy helped to bring her back. Now, I'm going to take a quick second and talk about story structure. And what does some guy on YouTube know about writing stories anyway? Well, maybe not me, but Matt Stone and Trey Parker, the creators of South Park, do. And they have a great explanation of how a story should flow. Explaining story beats, it should never be, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened.
The words "and then" belong between those beats, you're f***ed.
It should always be, this happened, therefore this happens, or, but then this happens.
And then this happens. No, it should be this happens, and therefore this happens. But this happens.
Hellboy 2019 does the first one constantly, which makes everything feel disjointed. The story doesn't flow naturally. Hellboy gets fucked up by the huntsman, and then giants happen, and then this chick happens, and then his dad shows up through the window, and then everyone's dead at this house, and then Baba Yaga shows up and starts making out with Hellboy, and then on and on and on until the credits roll.
You're just watching, it's like, this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens. That's when you're in a movie just going, what the f*** am I watching this movie for?
It seems like lazy writing, and it's jarring to watch. The story never feels like it's driving its own plot. I would say for the middle chunk of this movie, you could probably fall asleep or play on your phone and wake up at the end and maybe be a little confused, but you really didn't miss much. I'm gonna skip to maybe one of the more important plot points of the movie. Because Hellboy's abductor / teenage accomplice gets a poisoned dart thrown through her neck, they seek out Merlin, who lives on the same island as Luke in The Last Jedi. Merlin wakes up and sends all his friends to Betty Buys while he tells Hellboy he's the great-great-grandson of King Arthur.
Yes, that King Arthur.
And the way this is told to us is no shit. King Arthur had a daughter who had a daughter who had a daughter, and so on.
But Arthur had a daughter, and that daughter had a daughter, and so on.
And then he says Hellboy's mom's name was Sarah Bethany Hughes, and his mom fucked and married a goat demon, and then she delivered Hellboy, and now Hellboy is destined to destroy the world.
She used to fly to the Sabbath on the back of a demon in the shape of a goat.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
After we learn all this stuff, it's finally time for the final battle. Thank God, it's almost over. Hellboy learns that his dad got kidnapped and is being held at this big-ass church. They find Pumbaa in the church, and he's now roided out of his mind. Dude is jacked, and he starts kicking Hellboy's ass in this stupid CGI brawl. Well, one of Hellboy's sidekicks wants to get in the fight, and earlier in the movie, he trauma dumps on one of the other sidekicks about all his friends getting killed by this shape-shifting jaguar, and now he's the only survivor. And you think to yourself, the movie isn't gonna make him a were-jaguar, or werewar? Whatever, werecat is what we'll call him. But obviously the movie does make him one. They save this transformation for the final battle. He's gonna save Hellboy and kick Pumbaa's ass. Nope. This dude gets his ass beat. The movie does all the work for this buildup of his character, just for every time he attacks, he gets slammed against a wall. Why even include this? Hellboy and Werecat don't even defeat Pumbaa. The main villain just kills her most loyal subject for no reason, and then brings Hellboy to watch as she kills his dad. She wants him to take Excalibur so they can rule the earth. So naturally, after killing his dad, he does exactly what she wants. Hellboy takes on Super Saiyan God mode with Excalibur, but before he takes over the world, Homegirl sidekick number 1 vomits his dad out of her mouth so he can shit on Hellboy one final time.
Stop being a whiny little shit and show her she's wrong.
And to me, it's really funny to think of her just sitting down there with this long worm ghost thing out of her mouth.
Oh God, sorry.
This dude looks like absolute shit, by the way. What in the human centipede fuck is this thing? He has normal hands and face, but the body of a deformed worm. Hellboy does take his ghost worm dad's advice and kills the evil witch villain and throws her into hell. A little side note though, the only other scene that I actually unironically think is kinda cool is these giant demons terrorizing London. I don't know why, I just think it looks cool. And that's it for Hellboy 2019. My final thoughts on the movie are that it's bad, mainly for the writing and story structure. I also personally think the effects and world building are a dozen steps down from the Del Toro films. A little secret though, and don't tell anyone I said this, I think David Harbour does a decent job as Hellboy. I think he brings a little bit more depth to the character and is a bit funnier and has better line delivery than the other two Hellboys. I think he's held back in this movie by a shitty looking character design and bad writing. Now, finally, Hellboy and the Crooked Man. This is a weird one. Hellboy the Crooked Man takes the Hellboy IP and makes a horror movie. I personally didn't like it very much. You might be a super Hellboy fan and love it. To me, personally, I thought it was just a drawn out and boring 90-minute horror movie. And 70 minutes of that is just Hellboy staring at shit. It looks very much like a fan film, and this movie only has a $20 million budget. Pennies, I know. But I think they could have made it look a little bit better. Do you see what I mean? Godzilla Minus One was made for 5 to 10 million less, came out a year before, and looks 200% better. A little rundown of what this movie's about. It's the 1950s. Hellboy and two compadres are transporting a spider on this CGI train. The spider breaks out and kills one of the companions, and Hellboy and his other friend, Bobby Joe, tumble down this mountain. The spider shrinks for some reason and disappears down a drain. Then Hellboy and this girl go looking for a phone to call for help. They stumble upon this house in the middle of the woods, and this lady says this.
It's you, little Oriental doll.
Yeah, ignore the big fucking red monkey. We still have a place for racism here. They get invited inside, and as they're investigating this sickly child that's been bewitched, some random dude just appears in the scene. Like, just walks into the doorway. And apparently this guy has been with multiple witches and is also turning into a witch himself. And yeah, the rest of the movie just revolves around him. This guy, Tom. Tom is basically being hunted by this witch lady and her master, the Crooked Man, because he's carrying around this magical cat bone. Also, little side note, this movie gets 2 paws down for cat friendliness. I had to cover my cat's eyes in Hellboy 2 when the troll lady was gonna eat those kittens. In this one, I had to send them out the room, and they still had nightmares. This movie kills and mutilates little kitties throughout the entire runtime, and a fucking cat bone is a central prop throughout the movie. On to some actual film criticism. The acting in this movie is definitely the worst of the 4 I watched. One of Tom's crazy evil exes shows up and her southern accent is out of this world.
Who's this now? This ain't who I come to see.
After that, Hellboy and his gang of misfits trek the countryside, and at one point, another witch girlfriend of Tom just wanders off and has this snake come out of her vagina and then feed into her mouth and then kills her. Hellboy watches this entire encounter and does nothing, which, honestly, same, but the snake attacks him, and this Hellboy sucks at fighting. This man gets bit 3 times by this pussy-spawned snake before he crushes its head. And then he passes out and gets revived in some dream world where the 3-eyed raven tells him he's the son of a witch, and we see another ugly-ass CGI Hellboy. And that's 3 for motherfucking 3. So, after the snake and CGI baby Hellboy, they make their way to this church, home of the blind preacher who is the funniest dude in this film.
I'm gonna bust that evil wide open.
And this is where shit gets good. So the Crooked Man comes to collect Tom's cat bone, and Hellboy tells him to fuck off. And then in a fit of rage, the Crooked Man does only what the most sinister villains could possibly think of. He starts making biscuits in the dirt. And this act of pure evil reawakens the dead and transports our heroes into a Black Ops 2 zombies lobby. The only way to defeat these creatures is to draw a cross on a shovel and then swipe them through the air. And also, right before that, the Crooked Man makes the old blind preacher young and lets him be able to see again.
What are you doing to me, Satan?
And he says this.
Take my eyes away
I don't want no gifts from the devil.
And honestly, I have no idea what I'm even complaining about this movie. It's a masterpiece. I would say that's the only scene that really makes you feel alive while you're watching this movie. After that, Hellboy and Tom track down the Crooked Man to his bachelor pad, and there's a lot of exposition shit going on with Hellboy's past or something, and it's boring and I could care less. Tom throws a witch ball in the dude's mouth, and Hellboy pops a cap in his ass. Also during this time, Bobby Joe yearns for the mines or something because she thinks it's a source of the Crooked Man's powers. I don't know what's going on with them, but the preacher gets eaten alive by fucking birds, and then Bobby finds the spider that they lost earlier in the movie, and that's really it. My final thoughts on this movie are, if you're an enormous Hellboy fanboy or fangirl, then you might enjoy this, and there is nothing wrong with that. I don't really like super slow burn horror movies in general, and I'm not obsessed with Hellboy. The acting in this movie is the worst of all the Hellboy movies, and I would say the writing is on par with Hellboy 2019. Watch at your own risk, just make sure you put your cats away before you start it. The tier list I had for the Fantastic Four movies did not include the Hellboy movies, but if I were going to put them in the same superhero tier list, Hellboy 2004 would be in your average superhero flick category. It's pretty good. I do think it's better than the first Fantastic Four movie. Hellboy Golden Army is good but not great. This is a really good movie and definitely rewatchable. The last two fall into your movie is bad and you should feel bad category. I didn't really like them, and hopefully I will never rewatch them. That's the official rankings. Please let me know in the comments if you rightfully agree or are different and subsequently wrong. On a serious note, thank you for watching, and let me know what you'd like to see next. Bye.